All right. So this is going to be a class on battle games. Most of you in here have played a battle game. If you haven't, then your realm should learn how to run battle games. A lot of times, especially like when I started, my practice was just Ditch, which is a game, but it's not the only game, and there's definitely a lot of different varieties of games. I think Korriban in particular has really tried to make games different, varied for the different people you get at your practice. Um, I know that we have a few realm leaders in here, and I know, especially if you've traveled, you've seen that each practice has its own environment, its own culture, and your participants kind of want different things. Um, so I'm hoping I can kind of get you guys a good idea on how to make your own games for your people. I know we have Sparrow that runs a practice at Cal State Fullerton, and there's a lot of anime nerds over there, so theming things to anime is great. Carps runs practices at UCI, and you have a lot of different things over there, which Carps has been really good about changing up the variety of games. So we're going to kind of like see if we can help you guys get a better idea on how to make new games to switch up practice, to keep things interesting, because a lot of times what happens is if you run the same games over and over and over, people who don't like those games and want something different get bored, and maybe they stop coming to practice as often. So before we do go into any of like the details or anything like that, does anyone have any questions about games or any games that they like to run that they think maybe they could change up a different variety to? Yes, Carps.
All right. So in the last class, I don't see him here now, but in the last class, we talked a lot about crossbows. So our transition was, are we going to see like any sort of battle games that have weapon specific types? I would love to hear about those things.
Yeah.
I also personally have a lot of trouble when I create battle games for sort of UCI with including weapons like archery and sometimes poles, and they can either like completely dramatically change the outcome of the games, or the games just don't suit the play style. It can be discouraging for those players sometimes, and I'd like to see some insight that might help me out with that problem.
Yeah, and a few things that I've definitely picked up that kind of affect, especially pole arms and like archery type stuff, is the size of your field, how many people you have, and what kind of games you're running, depending on that. So I don't have it with me, but Kate and I are working on organizing all of the games between our two realms into a list of organizing it based on how many people you have at practice, the type of people you have at practice, if you have more sporty people who like cardio type games, or if you have people who like chill, more relaxed games, and kind of organizing all of the different games based off of what kind of environment you want, or what kind of environment that you have that day at practice. So I think like, especially with big weapons like pole arms and archery, you want more field space. You don't want a game like a bridge battle where everyone's shoved together in a small tight space, because that's how you get injuries. And you don't get to use the weapons to their fullest, so people may not have as much fun. So a lot of what I'm going to go over is kind of like based on field size, numbers for that day, stuff like that. Are there any other questions? All right. So I'm going to go over 3 different types of games, right? And when I say types, I don't mean like Monarch or Bridge or whatever, but I mean like 3 different main scenarios you'll see at practice. The first one being like your first games that you'll play in practice, when you don't have everyone there because people are on Bellegarde time and they show up late. So a lot of times you have smaller numbers in the beginning, or if you just have a small practice day. I like to think of these as like playground games. When you're making a game, there's always going to be a lot of things that we can take from our childhood, from video games, from whatever. And I think that games based off of like things you played at recess when you're in elementary school work perfectly for small like situations. Some of the ones that we use at Korriban are like tree tag, or it has a lot of names: tree tag, sharks and minnows, whatever. But basically you have one person in the center of a coned off area, and that person is it. They have full kit, and then everyone else is single blue, lining up at 2 points. So starting point A, starting point B. Their only goal is to run past whoever's it and make it past the next line. This type of game is really good for small numbers and also for warm-ups because it's simple, there's not a lot of rules, and it gets the legs moving, it gets people's bodies warm, gets them ready for practice, especially if you have people who aren't used to, moving around as much, kind of, helps them wake their bodies up. And it's great for small numbers. I typically group things from like anywhere from 4 to 8 is small numbers. And then 8 and more is for like medium and bigger games. But, it's also dependent on the people at your practice. If you have people who's super rowdy, swing big, maybe this might not be the best game, or size up the size of whatever your space you're using to accommodate for their big swings. But games like this are really, really good for starting it off. And also as people trickle in, they can join easily. So try to keep stuff like that in mind. You don't want something that people have to wait a long period of time for to join in. You want quick rounds, make it easy to just swap people out. Also, I like for warm-up games to try to not necessarily stick to single blue, but make it easy to switch from single blue to whatever kit they like to use. That way they can, get introduced, especially if you have a lot of new people who don't have their own weapons. If they're using loners, something like a warm-up game is good for them to, figure out which loner they want to use that day, or, see what kind of mood they're in, if they want to fight a lot or if they want to just chill, so they can kind of think about what games they're going to hop in on. Especially if you have a long-running practice, you're going to have people who aren't going to play every game. Most of the time, people don't have that stamina, and people also want to be able to sit and socialize with their friends out off the field. So giving people those good warm-up games to decide what kind of mood they're in is also really helpful. But that's another example of a playground game. My favorite ones are Tree Tag and Foursquare. I don't know if any of you have really gotten to play Foursquare because we don't play it that often, but that's for a really small day. Say you have, if you run Sparrow, running a college run. If you have Austin, if you could just mute your mic, please. Thank you. So if you have a college run, say you have finals coming up, and you have some people able to go and a lot of people not, right? Foursquare is a great game because it doesn't take a lot. You only need 4 people maximum or minimum, and you can rotate all kinds of weird rules with it. The idea is that you have 4 marked off areas all next to each other, and the only real thing is every round, last one standing wins, or first one out loses. You can kind of switch up the rules. That's a really good aspect of these playground games. Change it to however people are feeling, or however the realm leader wants to. If you want to make people suffer and, make them all, in a tiny, tiny little square where they have to fight each other with little daggers or whatever, you can do that. It depends on your loner weapons and stuff, but yeah, being malleable. And I like to keep cardio in mind with the warm-up games, things that move the legs, the big muscles of the body. That way people can stretch out even if they're not used to stretching themselves. Games that move the muscles a lot, or that they don't have to think about when they're like actually doing these big movements, helps because it keeps their bodies warm. Do we have any questions on small games? Yes, Carbs.
So you gave us 2 examples of like the playground games.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there are other playground games that can be like molded to fit?
Oh, absolutely.
You haven't? Is that something that maybe you encourage realm leaders to do, is to take something that's pre-existing and kind of just have fun with it?
So one cool thing about people is that we're all from different areas, different cultures, backgrounds. We had different childhoods. I know that there are games that people played when they were kids that I have no idea about, Tag is like the best example of a game that I think most kids played, but everyone knows by a different name with slightly different rules. In Belagarth, I think Tag basically translates to Warlord. And you can change Warlord however you want, depending on whatever rules you grew up with as a kid or what rules that people want to see. Especially when it comes to getting variety in your games, talk to your, realm mates that play all the time. Ask them what kind of things they'd like to see, what silly rules they might like to see added every once in a while to spice it up. But yeah, there's lots of playground games. It's really hard to like pinpoint certain ones because everyone played different games as a kid, which is why, it's good to pull from different people, um, especially if you have people from out of state or, who come to your practice, but they didn't, grow up in whatever area you live in. They might have some games you never even thought of that would be cool. Yes, Garbs.
That's also actually like a really good way to get somebody who's like an outsider or someone who's a visitor to your realm in order to have a better time at practice. And then they go home and they tell, their friends at their realm how they had a great time playing a game that they were familiar with even. So I'm sure you guys have all had that happen, had guests at your realms. But yeah, definitely something to consider. I think I'm going to do that almost every time I get a special guest.
Yeah.
They play.
I mean, I think it'd be cool even if every time you have a new person, just ask them, hey, what was your favorite game as a kid? And then try to work on a way of working that into Bell. Because what we're doing is playing games in the park. That's basically what it boils down to. So it's always good to remember that. I think a lot of us do this because it brings out that childhood fun. And is also a great way to work out. So, combine the two. But yeah, any other questions on small games before I move on?
You said that there were 3 types of games. That's what you're doing right now. What do you personally label this one that you just covered? Small games or playground games or warm-up games? What was it?
Yeah, so I think of them as like playground games, but basically this is for the beginning of practice. I always see it as when people are still coming in, when people are ready to start stretching, getting into the practice. This is kind of like your intro. If you think of it like writing like an essay, you have your beginning, middle, and end, right? So this is the beginning. This is the part that you don't have to worry about too much when it comes to like rules. You don't have to, make these super complicated. Just make them fun, lighthearted, good way for people to get into practice that day. And also, you can tailor these to whatever size practice you have. If you have a lot of people right at the beginning, maybe you don't need a small game. Maybe you want to start off with, the next bit, which is medium games. So yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now, for the next bit is medium games, and this is going to be the main part of your practice, right? At least how core band runs. Everyone has a different practice, so maybe you want to switch it up. I know some people like to go start with a big game, then de-escalate, escalate, whatever. But I like going small, big, medium, big. That's just how my practice has always kind of been. With medium games, I like to think of them more as sporty games because it's going to be a lot more use of the field, use of your cones, whatever loaners you have. This is when you're going to have a lot more people at your practice. I know most of us know Bellegarth time starts about 2 hours late. So this is when you're going to have more people trickling in throughout your practice. People, actually getting ready, getting their armor on or whatever, whatever they have. I like to think of these as like at least 8 people plus kind of games. Again, they can be made smaller, but if you want to, if you're thinking of big practices, this is what I think of. These are going to be like your Monarch games, things like Warlord, Steal the Bacon. If you ever played a lot of sports in high school or as a kid, a lot of those like not the main part of the sport, but like those side games like Steal the Bacon or whatever you want. That's where you can utilize a lot of those and make them bell games. So you have like Capture the Flag, I think is one of the most popular ones. People love Capture the Flag. It's competitive. It uses all of your field if you want it to. The teams can be whatever size. So it's really good way to have people expend all their energy, especially if you have a lot of those people who maybe have too much energy, who need to burn some of that off, those hyper younger people. These are the games that you're going to want to use for them. So my thought process for here has always been like, take a game that has traditionally been team games, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be, but team games always work really easily. And then try to find a way to make it bell legal. Football, right? That's basically just ditch, without the goals. I think eventually that's what Capture the Flag turns into. We have one called Ultimate Javelin that's based off of Ultimate Frisbee. and it utilizes specific weapons. So this is kind of going into like what Pat was asking earlier about specific weapons like crossbows or javelins or whatever loaners you have available to you. This is where you can really tailor those into games that are safe for everyone, because these are your big field games. Off the top of my head, say if we had 2 crossbows at practice, you would make them unique players in some sort of team game. Monarch games work really well. Say you want your 2 crossbow people to be the only ones who are monarchs. They can heal people. You know, a lot of people would like to use healing rules where the monarch can bring back limbs or revive people. I know a lot of you have played Secret Monarch, which I think is a favorite at my practice, where you don't know who the enemy monarch is. You just have to keep killing people until you figure it out. Coming up with those like weird rules like that, I think helps people a lot, because it, you know, it changes things up. It adds a different flavor. And I know that there's a 12 different versions of Monarch Battle, right? There's even different ones between my realm and Masayoff that I didn't know about until I visited. So kind of putting your practice's identity into these games works really well to keep people coming back. A lot of people like coming to practices as part of a routine. And, you know, so making sure you have that chunk of time for big games helps keep that routine of, oh, well, I know around this time is when they start this, so I'm going to head out a little early so I can make that, because I like these kind of games. You'll get a lot of people with that kind of mentality. And let me think. The other cool part about it is this is how you get people to interact with each other. If you have new people who maybe you'll be a little bit shy or a little bit unknowing of what Belagarth really is, these games I think are the perfect example of how you can combine a game like football, capture the flag, things that people knew from their childhood, and Belagarth, because it requires communication. I always encourage the new people and like the vets to try to like not just stick to their group. Mix and match where the vets and noobs are. A lot of this comes from whoever is running the practice, to make sure you switch up how you divvy out teams. You don't want to just constantly put the same people with each other, and you don't want to always let people pick their own teams. It's fine sometimes, especially if it's, if you're picking 2 new people who have never been to that practice to pick their teams, then you get a mixed match. But if you just let vets constantly pick their teams, they're going to pick the people they think are the best fighters all the time, or their friends, and you're not going to get those new people integrated into practice. This is a really good time to pick teams yourself, making sure you're putting vets with noobs, people who don't know each other with each other, and then your practice kind of grows. It's not just about having the numbers; it's about making sure the numbers stay and that people find reasons to like the people who go to your practice. Having them on the same team, talking to each other. The downtime in between rounds is also another time where they'll get to know each other. These are good parts to help your practice get more, close, get a better culture around it. Any questions?
I think I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Sparrow and then Carps.
I run a practice at Cal State Fullerton, just for everyone watching, but we have a lot of like new people, so we have people that are interested in playing like specific games that involve like javelins and crossbows and stuff, but like there's the issue of like safety, because like they don't know how to use those tools yet. So what would you recommend that we do if we have fighters that are really excited to try that stuff?
So great question. Whenever it comes to equipment that people aren't knowledgeable of, the best way is to just have someone who is knowledgeable show them. I know at Corban, we typically, if we see someone especially acting unsafe, we have a way of saying, hey, this equipment might not be ready for you, or you might not be ready for this equipment yet. Let's do like single blue or sword and board, something a little easier until we can show you the safest way to do this. I know you guys have a lot of noobs, but you also have a lot of people who know a lot. You have Matt Kip, you have some really good fighters over there. So, just ask them, hey, this new person doesn't know a whole lot yet, and they want to use a weapon. like a javelin. Can you show them the safest way to use a javelin? Can you teach them the specific rules related to that weapon? And then when you have a good amount of people used to those weapons, you know, when all your noobs are at least at the base level, then you can start making those games. I know for your practice, crossbows might be a little hard because you have a lot of bystanders and a lot of like foot traffic.
Yeah, I think they're banned at our school actually, at least in
Yeah.
that area.
But you might be able to get away with javelins. I don't really know the rules, but javelins are super soft, and especially if you know, make a bunch of loner javelins, don't um, don't just have them out. When it comes to equipment that you guys are not comfortable with new people using, make sure that a realm leader keeps eye on it and gives it out to people that you know will use it safely. Um, Reds, I think, are some of the most dangerous weapons for a new person to use. And I think if you're just handing out a glaive to a brand new person, you know, that might be a little irresponsible. So keep those off to the side. Just get to know people. If you know someone is a little wild of a swinger, try to correct that behavior with that new person before you get them used to using a weapon. Same with javelins, same with any kind of archery. You know, the dangerous parts of our sport are there, so we just have to make sure we curb the dangerous behavior and people understand that, hey, I get to use this stuff, but it is also my responsibility to make sure I don't hurt other people. And then I think it's really easy to integrate it into a game. Javelins, you know, I know Village Guard has javelin dodgeball that I've played every time I've gone up there, and that is so much fun. It's crazy because there's javelins flying all the time, but everyone there was used to using them, and it was very safe. You know, no one was really getting slammed in the dome too often, even though they are headshot legal. You know, no one likes getting hit in the head. People were told, you know, don't aim for the head, aim for the body. If it hits the head, it's an accident. You know, don't worry about it, but don't purposely aim for that. And it was a very safe time. And you know, we had I think 10 people at one point on either side just chucking this huge pool of javies. So you know, you can always find ways to make things safe and fun. Carps, you had a question?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to kind of like add on to something that you said from personal experience. So when I'm running games at practice, it could be really difficult to have enough hands to run this game that I'm doing and help a new person who you know wants to learn how to play, or you don't feel comfortable with them using a particular weapon type. And like you said, like for Aether, there's a lot of people who are really competent in these things. I personally like to encourage people who are really good and really enjoy things to teach what they really enjoy. They're typically going to be the most passionate and really interested in it. So like if there's somebody who arches regularly at practice, they're the person who I'm going to, you know, subtly nudge to encourage new people to learn it. And I do this, try to do this as often prior to practice, is if I know somebody's coming and they're interested in archery, I talk to them about it before. I give them archery rules before. And then that's not always an option, but yeah, it's as far as time management goes, if you can get those people interested in those weapons at practice a little earlier, you can, you know, get them before it's a high pressure situation, you know what I mean? Something I do.
And I think a lot of it also comes from changing up what kind of games you play. If you don't play games where archery is available all the time, you know, like if you play games that are like bridge battles where you can't use archery and you have to be really, really careful and conservative with your reds, you're not going to get people learning how to use these weapons. You have to make sure you mix it up so that people can experience all weapons types. I know especially we have a lot of archers that sometimes get bummed out when we have games with no archery. At my practice, and I think UCI as well. So making sure that you throw in an archery game, throw in a game where people can really have fun with their reds, helps a lot to, one, get these people excited about practice, and two, get more exposure to these weapons so new people can kind of see how they're supposed to be used as well. Sorry, I kind of had a brain fart. Yeah, go ahead, Garbs.
Sort of UCI has, as a game, red fighting. We have red pits as a game that we play. I'm lucky enough to have enough loner reds, but it's been a really cool and popular thing that we've been playing, and it's taught people how to be safer with reds. And it's just a hit all around.
Yeah.
The hit.
But yeah, so are there any other questions real quick while I remember what I was going to say next? Yes, Carps.
You were talking about medium-sized games in your list of 3 game
Oh, yeah.
types.
Okay, so when it comes to like medium games, this is also a really good time for giving people breaks. You want to make sure you have a lot of stuff at your field to give people time to chill. If you don't have chairs or anything, make sure there's an area designated for hanging out. I know UCI, they do a good job of coning off an area for no fighting, no weapons swinging in this area at all. Especially because they have kids sometimes. That, if you have a practice where there are kids, you want to make sure you have a safe area for them. Core band kind of has a natural hangout area where the loners are kept and where the benches are, and that turns into the don't swing in this area. We usually cone it off as well. Having an area for downtime, I think, is really important because not everyone has the same stamina, not everyone has the same bodies, and some people need to take longer breaks. Some people need to make sure they drink more water. I know core band just tries to keep our water jug there as much as we can, just so people have that option. If you don't, make sure where people know where water fountains are. Yeah, simple stuff like that. Are there any games that people can think of that would be considered like a medium-sized game? Something you think around 8 people. It doesn't have to be a team game. You can always switch it up. It can be like Warlord. I think Warlord is a great big field game because it's chaotic. It lasts forever. It burns off people's energy. So are there any games people can think of that they see at their practice all the time that maybe they want to put their own take on or get something similar but different enough so that it flavors the practice better?
So in Sunspear, we like to play a game called Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, and and it's pretty much just an infinite respawn game. It's to help encourage our newer fighters and even some of our older fighters to get used to kind of event fighting. Because you just set a timer for like 10-15 minutes, infinite respawn, but after a while I noticed that if one team was too overpowered or was getting the advantage, it was really easy for one team to get pushed back way too far up to their spawn. So I added like a 10-15 foot, like you can't cross this area to fight against your opponent line. That way no matter who's what team's winning more, both teams are going to always have that space to spread out and kind of have that field fight that they need without constantly getting pushed back and having to fight at spawn.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point. Having infinite respawn games or games with no particular end goal, just games that you are there to play, are really, really good for new people because it gives them a lot of time on the field to get comfortable with whatever weapons they're learning, to get comfortable with the flow of the game, of fighting, and especially if they're brand new, comfortable getting hit. That's something that a lot of people, when they start, are really uncomfortable with, and sometimes that might trigger their anger response sometimes. So putting them in more situations where they just get hit for fun, I think really smooths them over, really integrates them into what fighting and fun are supposed to be.
Most definitely, I agree.
And coming up with different fixes for stuff like that, like where Raw was having issues with the field size getting pushed back. That's part of these games. Nothing is permanent. There's no game that's set in stone. You have to play it one way every single time. Changing things however you think is best for your practice is really important, especially since we all have different cultures in our practice. Like for that kind of thing, I might come up with a fix of if you get a certain amount of kills, like say 3 people now have 10 kills each, right? I might put them on their own team and have them be like a side squad. Splitting things up into multiple teams can actually be a really good way to change it up as well. A lot of times, we see 2-team games, people slamming into each other in a line, and that's it. But if you add a third or a fourth team, then you have people getting like shifty of each other. People start making fun of it, like, oh, stay away from me. I'm going to go get this guy. All kinds of weird stuff, I don't know if a lot of you know this, but there's a game called Relic Battle. Basically, there's a point you have to hold. And if you hold it for a certain amount of time, you win the round. If you have 2 teams, it's just 2 teams fighting over holding a point. But if you have multiple teams, then they're coming at each other from different angles. They're using the field more. They're also working on their field awareness because they're not just watching one group of people. Now they're watching 2 groups of people. And also having multiple teams helps you mix up who's hanging out with who and like who's working with who a lot better. So these are things that are always good to keep in mind when you're trying to come up with different stuff for your games. Any other games people would have like consider like very typical of their practice that they might want to switch around? Grace, Sparrow.
This one, I don't know. We like to come up with a lot of weird games, and this one was one of the kind of weird games. It's kind of a spin off of Black Market, where like there's a bunch of weapons in the middle, and everyone starts off with either like no limbs or just like no arms, and it goes in a circle, and people choose like, oh, I want to grow an arm back, or oh no, I want to get a sword or a shield or something.
Oh yeah, I
And
remember that. That was fun.
yeah, we started like changing it a little bit, and it turned into this new game called like White Elephant, but it's really weird where it's like you can do basically the same thing, but you can also take away limbs or weapons from other people. And once, usually we choose like a certain weapon out of the whole pile that's like cursed. So as soon as someone touches it or chooses it, the game just starts. All the fighting starts with whatever you have. No limbs whatsoever, like 2 swords and a shield. It just starts. But sometimes it gets a little messy. So like, how would you like work out like balancing a game, I guess? Is it just like trial and error?
Trial and error is always going to be a part of everything, especially when you're making something new. I always think making sure people have at least a fair shot, like everyone has the same fair shot in a game, is really important. So for like that game, you might have people feeling a little salty that they didn't get a chance to go around because the cursed thing was picked up too quick. So maybe have it so that there's at least a set amount of rounds of people picking and choosing limbs or weapons until the cursed thing is in play, right? That might be a good way of making sure everyone has a chance to at least feel like, oh, I got to, screw over that person by taking their limbs, or I got to get myself good stuff before the game starts, so that no one feels like because of where they lined up, they didn't get the fair shake.
Yeah, okay.
Carpet.
So I didn't have like a specific example, but changing things up is super important for just like memory and fun. When I had a class of 2nd graders, right, and basically ditch is always rock, paper, scissors in some way, right? When you have a class of 2nd graders, they all know how to play tic-tac-toe, and they're all really good at basically drawing with each other all the time. They get ties all the time. But if you take the same game, and I used to call it toe tack tick, is you're trying to force the other person into 3 in a row, then just like suddenly everyone's a beginner even though they know how to play the game, and it does wonders for their comprehension in other aspects of things I was teaching them. Just changing things up is good for the brain.
Just a mirrored version. To compound off what Pat's saying is there's a game that Sparrow ran at Aether called, I think it's called the 4 Horsemen or something like that. I don't remember. Where like the people who won stay in and they have to fight everybody else and they just have single sword. Well, we play the exact opposite. It's called Escalation. It's just an interesting take of one game with just completely opposite rules, and it's a brand new game. Yeah, I like that. I do this. Were you done with your question? So back to your thing about your hotfix for Black Market. I played Black Market at Sword of ECI the week after I went over and played it for the first time at Aether, and I found a hotfix for exactly the issue that you're explaining of, like, sometimes it could be imbalanced. So your random cursed weapon doesn't have to be random at all. I cheated. The first time it was pulled, it wasn't actually, somebody already grabbed the cursed weapon, but I saw it. I was able to see this is going to go horribly in somebody's favor. Guess what? No one else knows what the cursed weapon is, but I do. So that was my hotfix for that example of the game. And sometimes, as in my opinion, as like the person running the games, you have the opportunity to maybe not play it super fairly with the outcome being fair. You know what I mean?
It's like
that's just
choosing the roles in like
But-
D&D.
yeah, exactly. That's how I say it.
Where the DM hides their roles.
Yeah, there's two paths, but there's actually only one path. You know what I mean? That's how I like to take an approach to it. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
And to kind of tack on to what Pat was saying about people feeling beginners at stuff, that's actually a really good way to help your vets and your noobs get used to each other as well. If you make a game that's not really reliant on someone's physical capabilities or their like muscle memory of having fought for 10 plus years, and you make a game based off of the rules where, you know, people have to work together and communicate, and it's a little sillier, that's a good way to break up the seriousness of your practice as well. If you make sure it's a, you know, it's people remember it's a game, then you can have a lot more communication between people and a lot more of that vet noob synergy. Because, you know, vets will always have their fighting. That's one thing that I think people need to remember. I can go to any practice and play a game and have a ton of fun. And when I feel like it, I'll go off to the side and start sparring people who just want to spar. Or I'll wait until the end of practice and I'll do all of my, like, you know, fighting as opposed to my fun fighting. So vets will always find their way. Tailoring a practice to a specific, you know, group of vets that might have just started forming at your practice, I don't think is ever really the way to go. Because vets, you know, they're vets for a reason. They come back. It's the new people that you want to hook and you want to make them feel welcome and integrated. That's the real important part. And I think the best way to do that is how you run the games at your practice. So from there, are there any more questions about like medium size like games, the bulk of your, you know, of what your practice time will be? All right, then the last kind of practice is going to be your finale, right? And this isn't like the end of practice necessarily, but this is going to be like the last big game ran. And I think one thing at Core Band that I try to keep consistent is that running the field is tiring. It's really painful on your throat. You can't just think about it for the people playing, but you also have to think about it for yourself, your health, your, you know, your energy level. You're not, you know, keeping that up all the time. No one can expect that, especially depending on how many other realm leaders you have working with you. So having a big final game, have that, you know, run that until people are tired and then let them do their own thing to chill at the end of practice is what I like to do. And these big games are going to be like things that you want people to think of when they think of your practice. They're big, like, oh man, there was so many people doing all this crazy stuff at this game. Man, I can't wait to go next week to see what they do. I know most of you who've gone to Core Band know that our big final game that we play that everyone thinks of is Pirate Ship. I love Pirate Ship. I think most people have a lot of fun in Pirate Ship. And the cool part about Pirate Ship is it kind of takes in a few of the other things from the other two games, in that it's malleable. You know, there's no set way to do it. You can make whatever size boats, whatever size islands. For those of you who have never played Pirate Ship, how it works is there's two marked off areas. We use a lot of cones at Core Band, but there's two marked off areas that are the boat. On each boat, you're going to have teams of whatever size. Obviously, make sure the boat has enough space for people to move around. But there's going to be one captain. That's a monarch. And when the captain dies, the whole team's out. Everyone else respawns at a set designation. Aside from that, the boats are actually separated by water. You're all bad pirates. If you step in the water, you drown. It's one piece. In between the boats are islands set up in whatever shape you want. They can be just straight bridges. They can be areas where people have to go and hop to. They can be whatever size and shape. If you want a big one in the center and small ones off to the side, it's whatever you're feeling. It lets the realm leaders have a little fun and creativity with however they want the game to play. There's there's tons of possibilities, and it's a game that you can run a dozen times in a night, and you'll probably still have people wanting to play more. When it comes to games like this, it's also a really good type of game to integrate some other of your equipment. Core Band uses our spears as planks. They're no longer real weapons. They're chunks of wood that you can use to like lay over and walk across the different islands, but you can still block with it. These kind of things also give noobs a little way of, maybe if they're not really good at using some kind of weapon, but they have, some way to feel more part of the game, using the plank to help their teammates get across and be really sneaky with it by pulling it out from the enemy's feet. And this is a game that we've run dozens and dozens of times and have tweaked, even more so. But this is what I would consider like a signature game of Core Band. It's fun. It's really, really high energy. You'll have people who end up doing like these crazy jumps across the island, people doing, all kinds of stuff. And it's just, it's a really good time. The important part of these games, though, is to make sure that they're safe. A lot of times the big games, like events, like those big field battles, are where people get hurt. You don't want to recreate injuries ever. So you want to make sure that people understand that it's still supposed to be fun, safe. And you'll have people who don't think about that, not in a bad way, but they'll be really high energy and they'll try to, run, jump, shield bash into somebody. And you have to tell them, hey, maybe don't do that, bud. And it's about also knowing how to say things politely and in a way that especially new people can be not offended by. But when you come to these games, it's also an easy way to vary some of the other games you have. We have a capture the flag variation called, it's been a while, but I think we call it Battlefield. But basically, instead of capturing one flag and bringing it and having them both in the same spot, we have an area marked off as a no fighting zone, right? So there's two teams. This team's no fighting zone is there. This team's no fighting zone is there. Your goal is to run, get into the enemy team's no fighting zone, and there's 10 flags. And whichever team first gets all 10 of the enemy flags into their no fighting zone wins. This is like a lot longer than typical capture the flag. So it runs a lot longer. You'll have people burning a lot of their energy, and you'll have a lot of that respawn time, right? So kind of like what Ra was saying, having a game where people can respawn multiple times so they can still get in the fun, still get into the game, still feel like they're getting their practices worth. Relic Battle is a really good one to mess around with for big games like this, because it's really high energy, really, big field too close together, trying to get that one spot, moving the spot around, changing how many spots there are. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with whatever simple games you have. And then I know a lot of times people like having themes to their games. Pillage is kind of one of those games with a theme where there's, the good guys and the bad guys, and you just make sure you rotate the teams around, make sure everyone gets a chance to be whatever, character or class they want to be. But thinking about the culture of your practice really comes into play when it comes to your like signature games. I know that we've had pirate ship run at the events that we've held, but I've also had people want pirate ship to be run at their practices. I've gone to Mos Eisley just to run pirate ship because people hadn't played it before, except for the ones who visited my realm, and they wanted to show it to new people, right? So if you come up with really fun, really iconic games of your practice, a lot of times you'll get people just constantly asking you to play them, to the point where maybe you have to stop running them a few times because you played it so much. And that's a good thing, that means you've made something that's really fun for other people. I know for like your realm, Sparrow, I would absolutely go to some anime themed out something or other, because everyone who goes to your realm almost is some kind of weeb. So, like having that familiarity for like, oh, I get to I get powers of an alchemist or something with like whatever team I'm on this time, you know, like kind of mixing it up, putting themes to things. They don't necessarily need to be that theme, right? Like an alchemist could just be a healer who can regrow limbs, or yeah, and that character is now Shao Tucker, whatever. Um, but this is where you get to really have a lot of fun with what you want to see at your practice, the kind of culture you see at your practice, and you get to kind of translate that into your own words, so to speak. Do I have any questions real quick? Sparrow.
Not necessarily a question, but I just wanted to add on and just like say like, yeah, pirate ship is like super fun. I've definitely, that was like one of the first like big games that I stole from you guys, and like we kind of it's just like a really great game to play with people, and we even added to it a little bit. Like we added goblins or like trolls to it, so like sometimes we'll have like a veteran player or just a player that wants to be by themselves. We'll have them sit on an island, and whichever team can like kill them first gets the advantage, and they get to take them until they die, and then they go back to the island, and then they can be taken by any team. And like, yeah, I think that's really fun. But yeah, also the themed games are really cool too. Like you said, we do try to do a lot of anime inspired games. We're still trying to figure out how to make a JoJo game, but that's still in the works. It's been in the works for like a year, yeah. But so far the only anime game we've played is like Pokemon. We've done Pokemon. It's like Ninja, but like you control a person and their movements and what they do. It's so weird. It's so dumb.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, no, and going back to that, I remember when we had our beach day for Korriban, we did change up Pirate Ship to where T-Bird wanted to play, but he didn't really care about the rules. So I don't know who it was, but basically kind of similar idea. We put T-Bird on his own island that people would constantly jump to, except instead of being able to pull him to your side, he respawned on the island, and he was like the grumpy old man who didn't want anyone on his property. You know, stuff like that. However you want to mix up games is really cool and fun, and it's really important to, you know, also pull from other people's inspirations. I know Carp says it all the time, but there's nothing wrong with stealing from other people. If it works for a reason. Maybe take two things that work and combine them to make them work even better. It's really hard to say what will or will not work until you test it at your practice. And that's the other thing. If you are testing something new, let people know. Say, hey, we're going to bust out a new game this week. We haven't really worked through it, but you know, we expect it to be a lot of fun. And you know, just let people know ahead of time, hey, don't expect this to be hammered out all the time. If you have criticism or if you have ideas that might make it better, tell them to bring it up to the realm leader. The people who play the game are probably going to be the ones who figure out what works best and what doesn't. You know, so make sure you talk to your realm mates, your friends, and see what they really, really like, what sticks and what doesn't. Also, this is a really like good time of the practice, the end game, to do something that's not quite so sports based, not quite so veteran, like serious fighting based, and do something more flirby, do something more just for the fun of it. You know, not have it be so competitive, be more fun and big themed. Yes, Carps.
We once played a game that was awful. It ended up being really just poorly planned, but it was a super fun time because we all did something new that we weren't didn't know how to play. We it was called the Kessel Run. I don't remember if you guys were there when we played, but we had this big blow up Millennium Falcon, and it was like a variation of heavy objects, and people had to put both hands on it and like go through a meteor or asteroid field. And it wasn't fleshed out, but people knew it was a test, and most people had fun. So, example, I can attest to that for sure.
Oh yeah, and that's another really fun, interesting game type. I think we stole some of this from Sunspear, but we ran it at Korriban a couple times, and it went really well. But basically, we had a coned-off path where one team had to follow, and along the path are like checkpoints, right? And the other team, their goal was obviously to stop them. We've used a few different versions of it. I think actually for our Level Up Day event, we used it for the storytelling aspect of the D&D group. it was super well received, and it was super fun. You just got to make sure also when you have like one side doing something different than the other, that everyone gets to play every side. It's really, really important, because if you feel like, if one person feels like, man, I'm always the bad guy, they're not, then maybe they won't have fun. So those are also other things to think about. A little 5 minutes early for the schedule, but does anybody have any last questions on big games? Did you have a question, Krips?
I always have a question, but this isn't about large games. I was curious. I know you did notice you didn't go over what your schedule was with us prior to the course, and I don't want to ask questions that you're already going to cover.
Oh, okay.
Could we get an overview of the schedule for the rest of the topics, at least?
Yeah, I'll go over the whole schedule real quick. It was very simple, but the first 15, 20 minutes were just supposed to be for getting people into the class and kind of introduce what we're talking about. Then it just went to small games and warm-up games, you know, the beginning of your practice. Then the middle games, the medium games, the more sporty type games where you want people to burn off some of their energy. And then the next part, which is what we just started and went over, was the large games, the identifying games of your practice. Really taking the time to, if you want, you know, to finish off your practice, make sure people remember it, and remember it for being something that they enjoy about your practice. Whether it be that your practice is highly skilled fighting, so you have a game that really tests people's teamwork, or team fighting or field fighting abilities, or if people think of your practice as the games practice, so you have a thing that ends off being a really big fun game that everyone had a good time playing for the most part. These are all, oh, one thing I missed, large games are also the best place to make sure you get a good use out of any equipment out your field. Whether it be archery, red using, crossbows, quarterstaffs, you know, this is the place to like kind of have fun with those. Let people, you know, yes, Carbs.
They're also the best for taking pictures. Oh, I think so. Having so many people out there.
Yeah,
if we have photographers here, can you guys attest that large games are good for pics? I think so.
Yeah, especially if this is the thing that everyone ends up staying to your practice for and being able to play. This is where you get your promotional pictures. Kuma took some great pictures of some of our pirate ship games. So like, you know, this is where you get your photogenic people to really feel like, oh man, I look pretty jumping through the air, slamming into this dude's shield, and all, you know, all the weird stuff that happens with these big games. And that's another thing that I didn't even think about talking about, but pictures during games, one, makes your practice look poppin'. And the more poppin' your practice looks, the more people you get. And then it just feeds into itself. The other thing is people feel good when they get pictures taken of them. And if someone, you know, like has a really good moment during the game that just happens to get captured, man, I can't think of a better feeling, you know? Like you'll have people just be like, oh, look at this. They're showing, you know, showing pictures of friends like, this is when I was playing Warlord and I won and I was the one who had all the people. Or this is when we were playing Pirate Ship and look at how high I jumped. You know, you'll have people feeling really like that they had a good time and they came away from something. So taking pictures of your practice is always recommended. And the best times are during the medium and big games, especially if you're trying to promote a game. I know that Corban tries to promote Pirate Ship like it's something that we made, it's our baby, and that we want more people to do it because then they know that this is the kind of fun we have here. Pictures are the best way to show that. Also, in kind of the same thought, make sure you guys have enough heralds to run your games. If you have a smaller practice and you only have 3 people who are confident heralds, maybe don't run super big games where you can't keep an eye on everyone. Especially if you notice you have people who are new or people who maybe have had some issues or something. Having enough heralds to keep an eye on the whole field in general, especially people who might be like, you know, on your watch list or whatever. Not necessarily watch list as a bad thing, but just people to keep an eye on for being new, or maybe they haven't calibrated right, or they swing too wild. You know, it's really good to make sure you have a lot of heralds. Corban has 3 realm leaders, but we have a lot more heralds than that. We've been giving heralding classes, and I know that a lot of our just normal people who come to hang out and play, you know, play games also sometimes take the time out of the day to herald and help out the realm leaders and give us a break. Yelling all the time is painful on your throat. You don't want to tear your vocal cords. I know, especially at events, people have told me that I just need to stop and drink some water because I sound like an 80-year-old smoker. Making sure to take care of your guys' energy is just as important as the energy of your practice. So teach people how to herald, even if it's simple things like, hey, just keep an eye on this area, or hey, I want you to start it off by throwing the ball for a goblin ball or something like that. Getting people involved, small steps at a time, will get them really comfortable with helping out. And when someone is tired, maybe they're like, oh, I don't really want to play this game, but I'll help you. And then, that's how you also help yourselves by getting a bigger workforce. Any other questions on large games? All right. So the last part of the schedule that I had planned was for everyone to kind of create their own battle game. So I want you guys to think about, first off, what size battle game would you like to see more at your practice? Would you like to see more warm-up games, more, medium, big, field games, or do you want to, try to have your hand in it and make your practices like kind of iconic game? So I want you guys to just take the next 10 minutes or so and give that a thought, and then we can start talking about what you guys have come up with. And during this time, please feel free to ask questions or anything like that. Yes, Carps.
Hello. I just want to be clear on what you're asking from us for the next 10 minutes. Do you want us to create a game?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like a full game fleshed out, but come up with an idea.
Like a short little blurb of what the game is and what the type of game is?
Kind of like a skeleton of something. Think of a game that you played when you were a kid, maybe something from a video game that you've seen. Even if there's like a sport that you really like to play, take that kind of, think about what parts of it you really like and how you could make it more integrated with Belagarth or foam fighting, whatever foam fighting you come from. All of this is applicable to any kind of foam sport. But yeah, think about what parts of those games you like, what you would like to see in Belagarth, and also what size you would like it to be for. Like if you really want to make a small game, those I think are really hard to make sometimes. So think about what you would like to see. Yes, Carps.
So for like a general bracket for those at home here, so like amount of time it would take, the type based on your 3 types, the field size, and then like any special rules or weapon types that are being focused on? Are those like a...
Yeah, that's a good generalization. I always like to build the skeleton first. So think, basically that, like what size, how many people you would see playing this game typically, what kind of game you'd like it to be. So if you'd like it to be more competitive or more like lighthearted and fun. And then if you have any special rules that you really want to integrate. As well as source material. So if you have like a playground game like Foursquare, that's definitely a big part of your skeleton. But just kind of take those few things into mind, and you don't have to do it all at once. It's really good to make your base and then have other people kind of put their own input in it. So that's what we're going to do here later. And again, during this time, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. While you guys are working that, I'm also just going to talk about a few other things that in general at practice are really helpful to do. Have a variety of loner weapons. Don't just have single blues and shields. Especially if you find that you have a lot of new people who like the flirby, more like silly part of the game. Have axes, have flails, have rocks. Although when it comes to projectiles, those are things that I typically always make sure that the realm leaders keep an eye on, but still have them. In my closet, I have a bag of like 10, 12 rocks that every once in a while we'll just throw onto the field and let people just, what? Bam. Kind of surprise weapons on the field is another good way to spice up different games. But yeah, making sure you have a variety of weapons. And if you need help with any loners, I think most people in this chat can teach how to make a good loner weapon, and if they can't, they know someone who does. Um, so having lots of loners. Promoting your practice is also kind of plays into what kind of games you run. If you like to show off your practice as really sporty, really high energy, you're going to get a lot of people who like that. When we were promoting Korriban as like a way to work out and to, get your exercise in, we got a couple of soccer players and like a guy who actually teaches CrossFit. And those are awesome people to have because they taught us a lot about, oh, hey, this is a good thing to tell people when stretching or, and then if you want to show off your practices more lighthearted and fun, then, you'll get people who come for the casuality of it, who come for the social aspect maybe of, hey, I work 80 hours a week. I don't see people. This is my one time I have off. And now I get to have people who I enjoy seeing all the time. So however you promote your practice also determines what kind of games you're going to be playing because you'll get people who want certain things. I know Korriban has a really big diversity of what kind of people we see. We get, all kinds of people looking for the exercise, people looking for the social aspect, people who just want to practice their archery, whatever. So it's really important for Korriban to make sure that we have a diverse game set. UCI gets a lot of new people, so I think Harps has done a really good job of making sure that they're all games that are easy for new people to get into. They don't take a lot of, pre-knowledge of Belagarth, of the rules, of anything like that. It's really just stick, hit person, lose limb. Okay, I can play this game now. Sunspear is very similar in that they have a lot of diverse different people. But I think Sunspear might have a little bit heavier of the actual like people who enjoy fighting. So they have a really cool environment where they have lots of games, but the games are really battle heavy and really like high energy, high mobility kind of stuff, which is really fun. Let's see. Crestia, what kind of games do you play at your practice?
I came just to learn because I haven't been to a practice because I didn't discover this group until after COVID started.
Ah, okay. So then, if you don't mind, if I can ask you a question on what kind of games would you like to see? What kind of games do you think you'd like to participate in?
I'm probably going to be interested in archery because I already do archery. So it's something that I'm already semi-familiar with. And that's one thing that's kind of nice. Our archery range is actually still open. Well, I should say it just reopened. We were still using it when it wasn't opened.
All right, so then whatever practice you'd go to, I'd recommend to your leaders, hey, just keep in mind that archery is my thing. Try to make sure that I can participate in as many games as I can without hindering other people,
Yeah, and I know physically there's not a lot that I'll be able to do that's super active. I have a really horrible respiratory problems, and so yeah, activity can make me black out if I do too much because I can't breathe.
Yeah.
So something that's a little more static than active would be good for me.
Right, and I think that there's ways to actively put that into games that are still active. I know a lot of rules that people come up with are like kind of like tower archers where they don't move around and you can't really hit them. Instead, they'll have a shield laying against them. And if you hit the shield, then the archer's dead.
That works for me.
That helps with people who can't be mobile. I know I dislocated my knee 2 years ago in the sport, and I basically turned into a statue. I think throw javelins and rocks for the whole of practice, and that was it. But I still felt like I was involved, and so there's always ways for people who make these games to make sure everyone gets a chance. How about you, Wisp? What kind of games do you like to play at practice?
I like cardio games. What about, I just came up with this. I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but what about a game called Trapper?
Okay.
So it's basically like it's either a free-for-all or you get like a couple different teams and each team has different colored cones, but they're not like the tall cones. They're the little flat ones that you can lay on the ground. And the rule with Trapper is that if you walk in between two of the same colored cone on the enemy team, you die. So you either have to jump over it, or you have to go around it. And then each team has like a set number of cones that they can like place down or move like whenever they want. And you have to keep track of where all the cones are if you don't want to die.
That's actually a really cool idea, because that kind of would give the participants control of what the field would look like instead of the person running the game. So to flesh out a bit more, the idea would kind of be to trick people into walking through your cones. You could even make rules like you could hide things with shields or weapons, however you want to throw it. But that's a really good game. I don't know. See, we'd have to play test it eventually, but I'd see that being a really good warm-up game, or even like a medium style game, depending on how many people and what the teams look like. And you said you'd even see more than 2 teams?
Yeah, we could have 3-4 different teams, like a whole menagerie of cones. It will be an absolute mess to run, but it might be fun.
Yeah, and see, sometimes having that chaos at your practice is what people want. Sometimes they just want to be confused and be running around and having a good time. And I think that kind of game would be perfect. That's actually a really cool idea for a game too. Does anyone else have any ideas for Wisp's game? Just to go over it, it's different teams using colored cones to set traps. I would probably say if you set up 3 cones in a triangle and they step within that triangle, they triggered that trap. Something along those lines, so it's really easy for whoever's running the game to keep track of, because that's also an important part. If it's hard for someone to keep track of how a game's supposed to go, it's hard for people to play the game.
Most definitely, I agree. I would suggest, obviously you go over, what the different colored cone types would do. Because Belgoth is obviously my primary sport, but in Amtgard, people are a little bit more used to that type of gameplay, where you have to keep track of stuff like that. So I feel like just kind of prepping the players a little bit more, and really making things clear on what cones can do, will allow people to kind of govern themselves a little bit better in that type of gameplay. But I think sticking to 3 different types of traps would help out a lot.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. So I think initially Wisp was saying that each team's cone color would represent maybe if it's your team's color, you don't trigger your own trap. But that's another cool idea of having the different cones mean different types of traps. So if one of them is you step in this, you lose your limb, or if you step in this one, now you can't hold weapons for a set amount of time. Stuff like that would be really interesting as well, to give it a lot of different flavors for however you want your practice to be.
And personally, I wouldn't mind that kind of scenario with friendly fire on, because it just makes you have to be more aware, and then you can kind of, if you're that kind of person, you can mess with your friends and throw a bird trap down. And
oh yeah, that's another good one. If one cone set meant you can't move your foot now for 10 Mississippis or something like that.
Yeah,
that's
or
another thing.
Take a leg, or depending on how you want to roll it.
Yeah. Whenever you have games that require countdowns, make sure people are loud. If someone's counting quietly, that just makes everyone kind of salty, and you just want to avoid that. Make sure people are counting loudly. I know a lot of practices now do 1 and then their realm names, 1 Korban, 2 Korban, 1 sword, or 1 UCI, or 1 Andril, whatever. Make sure people remember the name of your practice. That's a good way to do it.
I think another thing for Wisp for your game, to make sure that the cones can't go too far apart, so you don't get 3 people that just run to every end of the field to cover the entire thing.
Yeah, I might even
that's a good point.
I might even say only 1 trap can only trap 1 person, something like that.
So, it take a little bit of effort and some extra rope, but if it's a game you want to play often, investing it wouldn't be too bad. Just tie the 3 cones together.
Yeah, this is the kind of game I would definitely see with some setup. Yeah. Each team gets 2-3 minutes to set their traps, and then they'd go back to their side.
I mean, if you really wanted to invest in it, you could even do PVC triangles.
So yeah, and
need,
then
like 3 like 90-degree elbows and like two 8-foot long pipes.
yeah, I know like Korriban and UCI both have capture the flag flags with our with things painted on them. So because we use them so often, it's just nice to have something that looks good. It looks pretty that people can always think of when they think of your practice, not just the same old like we're going to use this sword now as a capture the flag, but think about what you want to invest in.
Yeah,
I'm definitely stealing this one, Wisp.
that's something that I personally like to add. It's like don't ever think that building items for games is like too much. You'll have a much better time if you have personalized equipment for games. It'll just really add to the experience.
Oh yeah. So I like this game, Wisp. I'm definitely stealing it. Carps.
I want to go next. I came up with a game.
Okay. Are there any other points on Wisp's game, real quick?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You're good. All right. Wisp, that's a real fun one. I'm gonna make my own version of that. Next is Carps.
So this is my game. It doesn't have a name. It's 2 teams. Each team has 2 like designated roles. There's a healer and like a damage dealer wizard. It's got magic. Or I guess they can be like wizard and sorcerer or whatever. The point is one heals and one deals damage. There's a respawn point at each back of the base, like each team. And then there's people who are just like combatants. The healer and the wizard don't have any weapons or anything. These are both capture points. They can only be taken by the damage dealer or sorcerer or whatever. And then the healer can heal people at like a countdown when they're around them. I've played a variant of like a healer-based game. So this is kind of like partly that. So all the players, let's say, for example, this one, it's like a medium-sized game. There's 4 on each team. So that's 6 on each team for this one. The players can't respawn unless they're all dead. The mage can respawn at like a count when they die at the respawn point, or they can just tag in. This is where it gets tricky. Only one of these are allowed in at one time. So if the healer needs to go heal, they need to go tag in, or they need to be tagged in by the other person, and then they can respawn and go in there. And the damage dealer is the only one who's able to take points at like a respawn, like a count. So maybe let's say it's like 3 or 4 or whatever. But they can't do that unless they're safe by having players to protect them to take the respawn points. And the game ends when both points are taken by one team. Or tank. Yeah, tank's a good one. I like that. But yeah, that's my game.
I'm just writing down some points real quick.
Sure, I'm excited. I like magic in games. I think it's neat. And Flurby, mostly Flurby. Yeah. Does anybody have questions on the gameplay? I know that's complicated.
So I think I have an idea of it. I'll let some other people ask questions if they have any, real quick.
No.
So okay. I have a question actually. So wait, the healers can only heal when everyone's dead. That's
no.
Wait.
The players can naturally like go to respawn when all of them are dead, but the healer can heal at will. So like if somebody's missing an arm or if they're dead, they can just go up and res them. So that way they can cycle the players without their entire team wiping.
Okay.
So I think a few cool things to like switch up or add. If the healer could respawn, regrow limbs, but in order to revive somebody, the healer then has to give their life and they go to the respawn. So say you have 2 teams fighting and one of the 2 people dies. If the healer wants to bring them back, they give their life and the healer only comes back when the whole team comes back. that might be a good way of keeping people like thinking about what they're using their healing power for.
Are you saying like the healer's in at the same time? Like they're both constantly in the game, and the healer's just like a burst heal for the team?
Not necessarily. No. So say people are fighting, right, and you have one team where someone gets limbed, and someone else dies on that same team. The healer could regrow that limb, and they're still in the game. They're still moving around and being part of it. But if they want to revive that one person who died, they'd have to basically trade their life. So that person comes back, and the healer goes to respawn, waiting for the rest of the team.
Neat. I like that a lot.
I really like the idea of having to capture both points, because that's a way to make it go on forever. Making sure that as long as the teams are balanced, it'll take a long time for both of those points to get captured. I think for the person who captured them, maybe since they don't get weapons, maybe they get like a small shield or something. I know my practice has some loner, like little bucklers that would be really fun for that.
We played a game that's similar to this called just Healer, and that's what they had. They each had small shields.
Yeah.
So they can protect themselves but not actually hurt anybody.
Yeah, that sounds like another fun one. That one would probably be really good as like a final game almost, depending on the size of the teams.
We had people who are like high cardio in positions that are healers. So it was like Seamus and Button. And they were just sprinting back and forth. It's pretty neat.
Nice. Are there any more points about Carp's game? Do you want to say anything else about your game?
It's clearly perfect game. I'm going to run it every single practice from now on. So,
yeah, that's how Pirate Ship was for us.
Neat.
I think that one sounds cool. I want to play it.
I want to play it right. I want to play literally any game right now, actually.
That's fair. So here's my question. What would you have? Would you think this would be a game for archery and like ranged weaponry?
No, it's one that you'd have to play when there's no archery. I don't think that it's like accommodates it.
So do you think there's a way that you could
maybe a
accommodate?
tower?
I think
Especially if you could put one at like opposite the posts.
I think that actually be the way to do it. Maybe if you had, this would, I think to have archery would just make sure you have a big enough field size so that people don't clump together super hard. But if you had towers maybe at the points where the archers aren't on either team, but are just defending the points, like, haphazardly until a team captures them, that might be a cool way. Archers are neutral until the point is captured. Or other things, other ways, but just make sure that, yeah, that might be a fun way to add archery into it. Just making sure, they're being safe with where they're shooting. This might even, this is also obviously a good way to have crossbows involved. Or javelins. You can have the towers be any kind of range projectile, whatever someone wants to pick. Maybe if they just want to go at it with a bag of rocks, that might be it. So that might be a cool one too. Any other points about the game? All right, who else wants to share their game? Ra, I choose you.
Uno reverse card. No, I'm okay. So this is kind of a rehash from a game that we play every once in a great while in Sunspear, and it's kind of a objective game. We did a few storyline based fights for a little while when we were doing a little bit of stuff with Amtgard in our area. And so you technically have 3 teams, but you have 2. Like this is a big battle game. So you typically will have 2 main teams with about, hopefully, like any number of people, but hopefully a large number, about 5 at least on each team, maybe 8, depending on the size of your practices. And then you're going to have perhaps a team of 4 act as guardians, and you'll need to set up like a map-ish area, kind of like a little cove for the other team to have the team of 4 to have a relic behind them in, and then they have to defend the point from the 2 teams, but the 2 teams are also fighting each other. And the objective is the game is for the 2 major teams to figure out that they need to work together, and then they need to work together to get the relic, and then they have to fight each other after they kill the guardians. But the guardians continuously respawn until the relic is out of the pit area where the guardians are at, and the guardians typically have 1 point of armor all over that regenerates. You can either do on death or after like 30 seconds.
That sounds pretty cool. I think that one's another one that can be used for like a small game or a big game, depending on how you do it. It's like if you wanted it as a smaller game, maybe only have 2 guardians, but they're full kit, and the other 2 teams are all single blue. I think
that wouldn't be bad at all either.
Making anything single blue is a really good way of just making it a warm-up game. That's the base of what most of fighting is and going to end up being is single blue games. So having that, start off your practice is a good way. And that you actually bring up another point. Having stories to your games can be really fun. Before all of COVID, we were actually going to do a once a month or once every other month type of thing where it's level up. And it's a continuous ongoing storyline for the year. Kind of like a D&D campaign, because Level Up was originally with a D&D group. And have people invested in what's going on with your story, have people really, I fought with the bad guys last week, and I want to keep fighting with the bad guys this week, or whatever, however people really split off into what they really liked or what they didn't. But yeah, story games are fun, and I think that's an interesting game. Does anyone have any points on Raw's game? It's like a really interesting variation of Relic Battle. No? Okay. I think it's pretty solid, and I think it can be used for a lot of different ways. So, yeah, I think that's a cool one. Who's next for their game that they want to talk about? Squire Pet.
Hello. Okay, this is I'm trying to get it. Here's my drawing. So there's a red team, there's a blue team, and there's 5 holy relics and 5 holy red relics and 5 holy blue relics. And this game will involve coordination between 2 very specific heralds that have to be on point. So the holy relics are going to be just outside the field barriers, and they're only allowed to be touched by their team. So even if blue team will drop a relic here, red team's not allowed to return it. It's not their relic. And then when red team gets all the relics back to their base, then these 2 heralds have to communicate that blue team is no longer allowed to respawn. And this is going to be a large field game that's going to take an amount of time, because the safe spaces are also their respawn points, or their bases are their respawn points. And so they're trying to get all their relics so that the opposite team can no longer respawn.
That's actually really cool. I think that's another one that's kind of similar to Capture the Flag, but different enough that it feels like a whole new game. Does anyone have any points to make about it? So a few things that I like. I like that I was expecting, you just take the relic back to your side and that's it. But I like that it instead isn't the end of the game when you get all the relics, but just kind of is how you end the game, right? Is how you make it so that the enemy team doesn't get to respawn.
Yeah, and it would allow for like even if one team had one more relic, that doesn't mean like it's the end of the game. It means like red's got to really catch up to get their relic back, and they can still win with skill.
How many people do you think this would be for? Do you think this would be like a big end game or like a medium-sized game?
Big ass game.
Big ass game, yeah. So like lots of people on each team.
Yeah, like 10.
Yeah, see that sounds like a lot of fun. Would you say archery would be allowed on this? Like, it would just be like kind of like typical field fighting?
Yes.
Kind of cool. So it's another game where everyone can kind of do what they want to do. Definitely going to be a cardio game. This one,
Yes.
after the flag types games, you'll see your soccer people picking up, flow or something, and they're just going to start sprinting. Something to keep in mind when you have games that involve picking stuff up. I don't know how you guys would like to run it yourselves, but I always keep the rule of to hold any kind of relic or item, flag, has to be in an empty hand. You cannot be holding another piece of equipment in that hand. That way, it's easier for the heralds. The heralds will be able to see, oh, they have it in their hand. They're not tucking it in their belt or something, being shady with it. It's plain to see. And the enemy team can also say, oh, that person has a flag, we need to go after them. It makes the game run a bit smoother and easier for the heralds to keep track of everything. That's a cool one. And you guys are coming up with fun stuff. Do you have anything else to say about your game? What's it called?
I don't know, but it's so easy to make this into like a themed battle, right? It could be Sith versus Jedi or fucking
fighting for holocrons.
Other opposing forces that aren't as cool as Sith or Jedi.
I mean, yeah, that's the other thing. If you have a game that doesn't have a theme already and it's very like blank slate like this one, man, you can put it to anything you want. If you want to host a day event and have that day event have a theme, bam, now you have a way to theme your games to it. Really simple, really easy.
And what originally inspired the like idea that that you have to get all 5 is that I was thinking like what was my favorite childhood game, and it was definitely like any of the Legend of Zeldas, and that's all the same shit. Is like, okay, you need 5 pieces of this, go get those 5 pieces, and now you have your holy thing.
Yeah, and see, like I wouldn't have even like I played a lot of Zelda games that never even like came to mind. So everyone has like different things that they attribute to like what they had a lot of fun as kids that can really be translated into what you want to see in games. I know, like, especially people who play a lot of video games, who did a lot of sports, like there's tons of stuff that we probably don't even remember, but when you start thinking about it, it'll just come to you and you'll create some super fun game for your practice. I like that one. Who's next? Any volunteers?
I would like to propose a workshop
Okay.
idea. So it's pretty easy. Chess. But instead of a grid of squares, just think of rows. So you know how the pawns are on an entire row? So they can move within their row. All of the pawns can move within their row. And the pawns can respawn after, say, 5 seconds or something if they die. But the head pieces also can move within only their row for now. And that's what it is I want to workshop, is like, what would the king be? What would the queen be? The king has to be alive at the end of the game, otherwise you lose. And then when they die, they die. So the pawns can respawn, and they're going to be doing all the work pretty much. They're going to be the ones that are moving across the board and in rows. But and I'm thinking I really want archery. So I've got a bias here, but I really want archery maybe to be like the knights or something like that, a position like that. And it doesn't have to be the number of chess pieces either. It can, like there can be many, many pawns, but they have to stay within their row until they can move further forward.
That'd be kind of interesting. So if you wanted it to be like kind of more ranged weapon based, that would be actually a really cool game style to do it for. Off the top of my head, I would think maybe in chess, your most devastating piece is your queen. The queen has the most range of movement. The queen has, you know, the highest chance to help you get checkmate or to help set up your checkmate. So I think in this situation, maybe the queen being one of the few pieces allotted an actual archery set, or having the king have an archery set but be completely immobile, and the queen instead being able to move across the different rows. You know, and then at this point, maybe your pawns can change into different classes, like the different pieces of chessboard, depending on how many kills they have, or upon making it to a certain point on the field. There's actually a lot of wiggle room with how this can be done. You know, if you look at video games nowadays, there's a tons of different versions of chess-like games. So this would definitely be one that like any practice could take and really mold to whatever they really want to see from it.
Yeah.
What do some of you kind of think would be a cool way to get some of these things across? Pet.
So my initial thoughts were make this a lot like the cursed item game, but instead of a cursed item, it's just like everybody takes a turn and each person represents a different like piece, and they have a different power, whether that's I'm going to take a new weapon or I'm going to take away somebody's arm. And so then you start each round with everybody flexing what their power was, and then you know it's a standard fight game.
That'd be pretty cool. So like a knight would be able to take off people's legs, or like a bishop could take away people's equipment, you know, however you wanted to set that up. That might be a cool way to do it, and have them like, you know, the 2 minutes before the game, everyone says what one thing they want to use their power for. That's another cool way. Yes, Sparrow.
I don't play chess, so I apologize if I get any of this wrong, but I think like pawns are kind of, there's a lot of them, like you said, and they're kind of meant to be fodder in a way. So maybe while the 3 main pieces are alive, like the king, the queen, the knight, or just the king and the queen, so long as they're alive, maybe their power could be that they continually respawn. Like all the other pieces don't, but they keep respawning unless one of those pieces dies or something.
That's another thing. You could have people like say you need like 4 pawns on your team, 2 of this, 2 of that, but give some incentive for people to want to be pawns, right? Maybe the pawns are the only ones who can respawn, or maybe the pawns can respawn until they make it to a certain point in which they get to choose a different class, and then they can't respawn. You know, be strategic about it. This would be like a really fun one for like lots of strategy kind of like people who really like to think about their games. I don't know if I saw it earlier, but did Austin raise their hand or no? I can't tell what the... No? Okay, cool. Any other points on this game, guys? I think this is a really cool one. Did we kind of give you a little bit of workshop on that, Night Sky?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping for. Is people throwing ideas in there. I like the concept. Yeah, I just really want to throw archery in. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, when practice starts coming around, we can definitely actually work on making this a more fleshed out game that we see at practice. I definitely see this as like a middle of the practice kind of game, because not everyone would like the strategy part. So those people could definitely go get their water, get their rest in, while the people do like it can really, you know, get into it. Who's up next? Beetle.
All right, so mine, I was just drawing it out on a whiteboard so I could. So mine is called Garden Battle, and you have 2 teams, and it's kind of also a healer game. And so I was thinking every team starts with 1 gardener, and there are 2 teams at either side, and they have the rest of their team as plants. And so the gardener has to like water the plants, and then they can grow from like starting out not having all of their limbs or something, or like maybe they have no legs and you have to water the plants so that they can stand up and like move around. And the gardener doesn't have any equipment other than like a shield. And so the gardener can also continuously water the plants to help them regrow limbs, but they can't like regrow anything themselves. We could also like scatter different equipment around the field that's kind of like fertilizer or something, and so they can like go and pick it up as you go around.
That's okay. So I have a few cool ideas to switch on that. So those pieces of equipment could actually be spots of like water, and maybe every time the gardener heals someone, he uses all the water in his can, so he has to go get more. Makes him a little more active, keeps him moving around. But this would definitely be one where like I could see people having fun with the theme. I know me personally, I love plant aesthetic, so the idea is very pleasing to me. You could definitely make a lot of really cool like props for this game. You know, plasti dip a shield that has a watering can or something super small, but make it pretty, make it fun, so that you know whoever has it has a little watering can handhold on them. It's another healer game that I don't see a lot of healer games. I see kind of like the same one over and over. So for you guys to actually come up with some really interesting variations on it is cool. This one sounds really interesting. Would you say like you'd see big teams on this, or more of like a medium to small type game?
I was thinking more medium to small because I think the eventual goal is to like wipe out the other team, and just to like, I mean, it could work with a bigger group, and you just try to take out the gardener as soon as you can to start wiping out the rest of the people. But yeah, I was thinking more medium to small.
And would you say you play a lot of Plants vs Zombies?
I do not.
See, that's why I thought of immediately when I saw like there's a gardener, there's plants. So what kind of gave you the idea for this game?
Actually, there's a task manager poster in my room that's like every day I do a certain thing, then I get to draw more. It's called Mandrake Garden. Every day I do a certain thing. Like today I swept the house. Like I can add more to the little Mandrake character on the
Oh, that's
poster.
pretty cool.
So that was where it came
Yeah,
from.
that's a really cool place to get an idea for like a game, and it's a pretty well thought out game too. So you know, that just goes to show like anyone at your practice can give you a really cool idea for a game. Just you know, you gotta give them the inspiration to do it. But I like this one a lot. I definitely think this one would be fun too, if you had people making the props and stuff. Kind of, this is a good way to also teach people, hey, if you want to have a classy dip, we're gonna make some watering cans for practice. You know, make 2 for each team. You know, maybe you know it's the whole like background story to your game is that there's 2 typical American lawn dads, and they really hate each other, and they're trying to out garden each other. You know,
It could be fun.
come up with weird, silly stuff like that. I like this one a lot. That's a cool one. Does anyone have anything to add or say about this game? Carps.
So I have the idea of weather effects. So like you have plants, so you have opportunities to change the rules slightly during periods of time. So like the herald can say, it's rainy now, this is happening, or there's intense sunlight. I'm thinking about Pokemon, because those are weather effects are part of like grass teams and stuff. But that's something I'd like to see where like a period of time, a certain effect is applied. And you have like an in-lore example of why that would actually be realistic. And then the second comment that I would have is it kind of seems like an example of games that I don't see very often, where there's 2 different roles that each team could have, kind of like Pillage, where like one team it seems like one team's a gardener and the other team isn't, potentially, or like a player versus environment game, which I don't see very often, which I'd like to see, where maybe the gardeners have like an objective against the environment itself, considering you have plants which are envo based, you know.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. We didn't really talk about games where it's, you know, PvE. So Corban has a few. They don't really run them a whole lot, but one of them is called Kraken, and a few fighters, you cone them off in an area to make like kind of like an 8-legged monster. and they have to kill the different people who end up being the different limbs of the monster. And, you know, obviously you talk to whoever wants to be the monster first, because that's kind of the maybe the role that not everyone wants. Whereas the other role is people, you know, like villagers or peasants or something, going to kill the monster. That can be a really good game type for people who like the Flurby storytelling aspect of, you know, some games. Really make it like themed to whatever you want. I think we didn't do it for Level Up, but we had one planned where they had to kill a dragon, and whoever was the head of the dragon got this. We used like a handball, but basically they could throw it as like a giant fireball. They could do that once every so many kills or something, and it's just an instant death. You know, so really like thinking of monsters from, you know, games or lore that you would like to throw into a game for no reason. Man, that I'm sure, like, you know, there's tons of inspiration there. But yeah, this is another one where you could have, you know, a gardener versus something that's trying to kill his lawn.
We could just literally have Plants vs. Zombies.
Also, yes. Any other points about this game? Sparrow.
Wait, so I had a question. For the game, the gardeners, do they have to like do you have to like touch the player to like give them the limbs back for like a certain amount of time, or how does that work?
Yeah, that was my intention.
Okay.
Like you have to have like a certain countdown or so long that you're like you have your hand on their shoulder or something.
Okay. Well,
If you
if you want to heal them.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because then playing off of what Karp said about like weather conditions, maybe there could be another one that's like a drought. So like the time to do that doubles. So instead of like 5 seconds, it's 10 seconds, and it's like the perfect time for people to try and kill each other and take their like limbs.
Yes, Carps.
Don't have players touch each other at practice. Like lay on hands effects. You're not establishing consent for your players to touch each other. There's ways around this. You can do like equipment, or like a hover hand kind of situation. But just since we're on the topic, try not to do that. You don't know what kind of risky situation you're going to put players that don't want to be in that situation.
I think a fun way to get over this one, since you have the like lawn gardener aesthetic, if you make that plastic dipped watering can shield, they hold it over their head like they're pouring the water, and they have to count, you know, 5 seconds or something. It's a simple way to get over it. No one has to get touched, and everyone still gets to play the game. Do we have any other people who want to talk about a game? Let me see. Who are we missing? Sparrow hasn't gone yet.
It's kind of what you guys were talking about like a PvE, except it's like I was spitballing with Austin, that's Sen, one of the officers from my practice. We were spitballing in like DMs, and it's kind of like a PvE, PvP weird game. It's basically just free-for-all. Everyone has to kill each other, but the game is called Natural Disaster. So randomly, the heralds will decide like a different natural disaster that happens at said point. So the way like the field works, it's set up like just like 4 squares, like something super basic, super simple. But there's like different natural disasters. So like, what was one of the ones we came up with? One of the ones we came up with was like a rock slide. So when a rock slide happens, all the players that are dead on the outside can throw rocks at the people on the inside of the squares. Another one was volcano. So what happens is one of the heralds can kind of like put their arms out and make the field smaller, but then it retreats back after the disaster's over. And then maybe because the field split off into 4 squares, another natural disaster could be like earthquake or something, and like maybe anyone standing on that certain square just like they're instantly, I don't know, they just like die or something. I don't know, something having to do with like natural disasters kind of versus the environment, but you also have to fight to kill all the other people on the field.
That's actually really cool. So it kind of reminds me of Chaos Herald or something, but less painful for the people playing the game. Because I know a lot of times Chaos Herald gets it ends up being like the person running the game is bullying the people playing the game. But this seems like a little bit more fun and a little more structured. I actually like it a lot, and I think you could do a whole lot of fun. I like the rock slide one. You can even have one square maybe be like a meteor, where after a certain time limit, whoever's in that square like insta gibbs, like kind of like the earthquake one, or maybe there's one that's going through like flash freezes, so that every time a herald like says stop, you have to pause right where you are. Like weird silly stuff. That's a really good one. I think that's a good one, especially for small to medium sized fields. You can get people really having fun with the rules, get their silliness out. I think that's a really good like new person friendly game, because the rules are about the game, not necessarily about Belagarth. I like that one. Does anyone have anything they would want to like change up about it or add to it or talk about it?
That would be really fun, especially with like new players, where you could create situations where everything is just an awkward situation and they can have like a really good laugh about it.
Yeah, awkwardness does breed familiarity. Crestia.
With the natural disasters, you didn't talk about like tornadoes that come down and suck you up like they do in the movies and spit you into another square.
Oh, that's a cool one. Yeah, like randomly, people would have to just run to the closest square, or maybe even if it's a tornado, they have to be spinning the whole time while in that square. I know. I love making people spin in my practice, because it just brings out silliness for some reason. That's a really good one. Yes, Squire Pet.
I just had another idea about how to make it not heralds picking on fighters or preferential treatment. Is fucking rework one of those fucking twister boards and just be like, boom, red squares, tornadoes.
And that's another good way of using stuff, that you can just find your house at your practice for whatever you want to do. That actually sounds like a really fun idea. Any other points? All right. Cresty, did you have a game you want to talk about?
Again, I'm so new. I haven't been to anything yet. So I came because I was like, oh, learning opportunity, and I like all the learning opportunities. So.
Okay, perfect. And then Austin, last but definitely not least, do you have anything?
I'm the one that helped with the earthquake thing. I just didn't talk.
Oh, okay. No worries.
Yeah, we were just messaging in DMs, just like spitballing. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So I have notes on everyone's games right here. I'll type them up a little more clearly, and I'll add them to the page for what everyone kind of came up with. We went a little bit over, but to kind of finish everything off, I hope everyone took away something about not only about how to make a game, because that's obviously an important part, but also how to make the games more fun for your practice, how to make the practice more welcoming by using games. And I'd like to open up whatever amount of time for anyone to ask questions or make comments or anything like that. Carps or Pet, if you have anything to say about the class or anything as well. But yeah, that was the class for the most part. I think actually everyone came up with some really, really fun games that I'm going to steal and use and change up to my heart's content.
And I really love like the natural disaster thing. I bet I could like totally make up some code where you could press a button and like a slot machine sound plays, and then it's like the item obtained like sound effects, and then it's like some random natural disaster. That would be awesome.
Oh man, that sounds like fun. More stuff like that at practice, more things to just make practice a little more immersive, a little more unique. Man, if you get people who can make stuff, get them to make you stuff for your practice. Find ways to convince them. Carps, go ahead.
So I know you're over your time. We don't have any classes after this. So if you wanted for this to run for as long as you wanted it to run, you're more than welcome to. But I know that you probably have a personal schedule and you want to, do the things you want to do today. So.
No, I mean, my main part of today was to hold the class, so and hang out with this one right here. But I mean, I'm happy for any questions, any talk, anything that anyone wants to go over. This is always fun for me. This is when I started the realm leading at Korriban. The idea was, there are two practices: one for people who like fighting, and one for people who like to have fun and play games. And I think that both can be achieved. Yeah, Akuma made a good point right here. Hazards are really fun, and you can throw hazards into almost any game. It just takes a little bit of rope or a little, some cones, and you can really have some like change ups to your environment. Putting up walls that people can't swing through, making moats that people insta die if they cross it. I like to think of Tron. When the motorcycle makes the line, the second you touch it, you just explode. So hazards like that can be really fun. Things that people can't shoot arrows through, people, or certain spots that they can. Stuff like that is really fun, and you can throw those into a lot. I think the most valuable game is like Steal the Bacon, where you have two teams, they have to pick up a thing and bring it back behind their line, right? It's a really, really typical football, like soccer type game, but change up what angles they're trying to run from. Maybe they have to run side by side instead of from opposite directions. Put up lots of barriers, put up walls that they have to walk around, put up, maybe like troll pit where you have someone guarding the thing who's, like a neutral party. But these are things that you can add to like a lot of the different games just to give it different flavors and to change up what practice feels like. So a few things maybe are like, go to your local Walmart, look at what toys are on sale. Look at see what toys you can buy for like $5-10. Buy them, bring them home, make something with it. Yeah, carps.
You can make a very easy large object by taking 4, or I guess a package of puzzle mats and putting them all into a square or cube. It makes a good object to use.
That's a great idea. I like to use those big bouncy balls, those massive ones. I think they're cheap. They're like $4 to $6. You buy it, just throw it on the field, let it get abused. If it breaks, it breaks. But these, not in a bad way, but running practice is sometimes like being the teacher on duty at recess, and you have to make sure that kids are having fun so they're not hurting each other and doing bad things. So make sure practice is fun, that people are having a good time. You kind of control the energy of your practice as much as the people who attend your practice. So always, just do your best to make sure you're keeping a upbeat energy, having fun. I feel like that's the thing that people forget, is that sometimes people take the competitive side and forget that it's also supposed to be fun. Any other questions, things to talk about? Yes, Carps. I want to buy one of those clicker things for every time Carps raises his hand.
I like asking questions, but if there's somebody else that wants to ask something, I have 2 questions that are, I think, important, and I'd like to know, your point of view on them. I'm going to put myself in 2 different scenarios. The first of which is, my vets hate games. They don't want to play them. How can I make my vets want to play games?
So yeah, that was an issue that we had at Korriban, and I think that's an issue that a lot of practices with vets that are vet heavy are going to have. And my solution is always just make something competitive and kind of reminiscent of ditch, because a lot of the times that's what vets want. They want some form of ditch. And I think, ditch, Carps, you say it all the time, but ditch is still a game. And I think if you make it a little less often, how often you throw in ditch, it also does make ditch feel a bit more special. And the different, the 151 different variations of ditch that you can get, you can change it up however you want. I think monarch battles are also very typical, vet, vet SOT games that are, you just line up and fight. And it doesn't always have to just be that. Throwing in different rules to, or changing up teams really helps appease the vets, but at the same time get the noobs playing. And if you do have vets that are just having a bad attitude towards something, talk to them. I think I said it in the beginning, but I'll say it again. Don't tailor your practices towards the people who have always been coming out to practices, because they're going to keep coming out. The new people who are just getting into this, I think, are the not more important, but should be the focus. That's how you get your practice to grow. That's how you get more people comfortable with fighting and with practice and with the environment that is Bellagarth. I know not everyone knows this, but my first year wasn't actually 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago. I tried Bellagarth in the year I graduated high school, 2013, for 2 days. I went to 2 weeks of practice, and people who won't be named, but who I do now participate a lot in Bellagarth with, were there and only cared about fighting. Would just, if you're not on the field, then go home kind of mentality. Or if you're not fighting, you're useless to my practice. And I went to 2 practices, and then I didn't go back for 5 years until I completely forgot about any of what that was until I, re-met those people. Now I'm running a realm, and I'm doing I'm trying to do the opposite of what they did, making people feel like they don't have to participate, that they can just be there at your practice. I think another important thing to realize is, aside from battle games, there's a lot of other parts of Bellagarth. And if people want to do those parts of Bellagarth just at your practice, make sure that they feel comfortable and know that they can just do that. I know that that's something that Pet and Carps are very passionate about, and I think that is a really good thing. Craft at practice. Let people know, if you have a designated area for crafting, that's okay, and that's awesome. Hype them up. Yes, Kratia.
That's one of the things that I like is, crafting aspects. Because of my physical limitations with my crappy lungs, I enjoy the crafting aspect. I'm in the SCA right now. So Facebook said, hey, you might be interested in this group. And I'm like, their park is right down the road from me. And so, yeah, I'm kind of, investigating what all is possible. And some of the arts that I like are not acceptable in the SCA because they're not, period. They're more fantasy related and whatnot, and I'm like, I need a group that supports that too.
Oh, I can guarantee you, we don't, especially in our area, if anyone tells you that what you're doing isn't period or isn't accurate, the realm leaders will tell them that they can kindly shove it, because it's about having fun. And any art is, I think, a cool thing to add to your practice. I know Pet once entered a dream catcher, and I thought that was one of the coolest things I ever seen. I'm like, what, you made a dream catcher? So anything that you think is fun that you can bring to the practice and do, I think is awesome. Pet.
So I think that it's important for everybody to remember that, our name Bellagarth comes from Tolkien's Elvish, and ultimately our sport was created by a bunch of college students who were all like history majors or whatever they were, but they also shared a love of Lord of the Rings. So we try and I try to remind people as much as possible that, like, ultimately at our roots is fantasy and not medieval. And that we also have a term in our sport called Bellagarth aesthetic, which is basically like, if enough people are doing it, then it's a thing.
Yeah, who makes Bellagarth culture? Bellegrim. It's as simple as that. And I come from a background of an English degree, so I get picky with words, and I try not to be the negative side of picky, but the other side, in that fantasy means that it's not real. So it's whatever you want to create. If you want to recreate your favorite anime character as a Bellagarth, as your Bellagarth persona, do it. If you like making stuff related to, if you want your character to be the fantasized embodiment of a computer chip, go for it. It's as much as you or as little as you want to put into it. And I think that's the other half of practice, isn't just fighting, but it's the culture and the community. We're a medieval society, and I think that's the word to focus on, not combat. Anyway, any other points or anything else anyone wants to talk about? Sparrow.
Yeah, I just want to just like emphasize like that's one of the things that I really like about Bellegarth is that you can do almost like whatever you want. Like I see
Wiz.
people at like events running around in like Sailor like Jupiter outfits or like as Legend of Zelda characters. There's this one fighter that has like a shield and it has the logo for it's not Butter or something. I forgot. I'm pretty sure his name's Butter or something. But like it's so dumb. Everyone's so cool though and so creative. Like you can don't worry. You can do probably whatever you want.
Oh, that's cool. If anyone hasn't read it yet, Cressy says that their SEA Kingdom did a theme of heroes and villains and what their stuff would look like in medieval garb. I think, you know, a lot of this is also you can take things from modern day and apply it to your games. You know, if you look at comic books, man, comic book authors I think are like the most indecisive people because there's so many different versions of so many characters that they just want to see like the creator, the people who write Batman comics just want to see Batman in every possible fashion. He's a samurai, he's a ninja, he's in space, he's an android. There's a bit where he gets a white power ring and turns into God with a chair that knows everything. So like in the end, none of it is really that serious. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable for people. I know I would love to see more like Mass Effect theme stuff. That's just my particular nerddom. But I mean, you know, you can also throw this into the games you make or into whatever, you know, garb you want to make, whatever art you portray. I don't, you know, there's so many different things out there, but you can do any fantasy that you want. Don't let people tell you otherwise. I can't really see what that is, but that's super cool.
I like to paint silk, and that's one of my silk paintings.
That's super cool. Wait, you painted that?
Oh yeah, that one took me a long time because while tracing it, I was literally had the diagram up against the wall and the frame up, and I'm short. Okay, I'm like 5'1", and I'm standing on a step stool trying to trace it out on the silk. It's crazy.
That's super cool. See, stuff like that, I think, is where, I mean, if you start coming to our practices after all of this is over, I'm absolutely going to offer to throw money at you for something like that.
I'm in Vegas, so I'm not sure where you guys are.
Oh, okay. So we're in California. We're in Southern California.
I thought that's what I think I'd looked at that, and you were in California. So
yeah, the realm leader who is in Vegas, he's not. He was the one who taught the crossbow class.
Yes.
But yeah, no, we all try to be the same people. Everyone who participates in these classes all end up being similar minded of, you know, inclusion, making fun games for everyone to enjoy, not being nitpicky about fantasy or medieval. Yes, Pet.
Okay. So Igua, is there anything that you else would like to say before I officially end the recording?
No, I think just the things to take away from this are have different size games for the different parts and different sizes of practice. Make sure that you talk to your realm mates about what they like to see, because that's the most direct way you'll get what kind of things your practice wants. And make sure that you keep things fun and open for everyone to enjoy. Aside from that, I do have notes on everyone's games that they made, and I'll be kind of reorganizing how I wrote them, and I'll post them to the page later as kind of like what people got from the class.